Welcome to Crops, Cattle, and Charley. I'm Charley Martinez, and I'm joined by Andrew Griffith and the University of Tennessee crop economist Aaron Smith, who's with the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics. Today, Dr. Smith is going to be discussing planted acreage estimates ahead of the USDA June 30th acreage report. So, Dr. Smith, what are current USDA estimates for planted acreage for corn, soybeans, cotton, and wheat?
Well, when we look at the current USDA estimates, the current numbers come from the prospective planting reports, which was released March 31st, but represents closer to the earlier part of the month in terms of when the survey was actually conducted. So there's typically some substantial revisions that end up occurring between the prospective planting reports and the June acreage report. But as of right now, the USDA in the prospective planting report indicated corn planted acreage of 97 million acres, cotton at 13.7, soybeans at 83.5 million, and wheat at 44.7. When we look specifically at Tennessee, the estimates were 1.04 million acres of corn, 360,000 acres of cotton, and 1.5 million acres of soybeans, and 310,000 acres of wheat. And so when we look at what's occurred between March 31st and now, there's some speculation that we will see a reduction in that number of corn planted acreage, somewhere in that 1.5 to 2 million acres nationally. Also in Tennessee, we're anticipating a moderate drop due to some of the wet conditions that persisted, particularly in the northwest portion of the state. And so we're kind of looking at numbers probably closer to that 950,000 acres for corn in Tennessee. Obviously, when you take some of the acreage out of cotton and corn, that's going to end up getting planted to probably soybeans is the next most logical crop that it's going to go into. In terms of our cotton acreage, we're anticipating that to also decline due to some planting issues, particularly in the western portion of the state. You know, we're currently estimated about 360. I think we'll be closer to that 300,000 acre mark in terms of what we're going to have in Tennessee. When you look at some of the national numbers, it is really important. There's some very big regional differences. I'm going to put wheat aside because it gets really complicated looking at the differences between spring versus winter. But when we look at other areas, we're likely going to see some additional soybeans planted because the price ratio between corn and soybeans kind of moved in favor of soybeans over the last 2 months. So if you look back to kind of early March, the soybean to corn price ratio was about 2.3, and that's since moved to about 2.55, which does end up providing some incentive to move to soybeans for a lot of producers across the Corn Belt.
Given that supply outlook, how do current projections affect price expectations for the fall?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we have in row crops right now is we do have abundant global and domestic supplies for most crops. And when you're looking at the acreage levels, that 97 million acres of corn, obviously, even if you knock that back to 95 million, is substantially higher than last year because of the prevented planting issues that occurred in 2019. So we're looking at building stocks both on corn and wheat and cotton. Now, soybeans is one where there is maybe some potential bright spots as the USDA currently is estimating it. But again, if we add some additional acreage to that, you know, we are probably looking at, you know, increasing that carryover. Now, the big wild card remains the export sales. We really need to accelerate the pace if we're going to end up seeing China meet that phase 1 agreement, and that could provide some assistance in terms of prices for Tennessee and U.S. producers. But unfortunately, we're probably going to end up being in an environment where we're going to have, you know, corn prices on the futures market somewhere below 3.75, and soybeans, you know, somewhere less than $9. You know, a lot can change between now and harvest, but as of right now, given what we know, without a major weather event, we're probably going to maintain these depressed prices close to the current levels. But we'll have to wait and see. Ultimately, weather and the sales data is really what's going to drive where prices go from here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Smith, and thank you to the viewer for watching the video. We hope you found it useful, and we hope that you'll join us again on the next one. Thank you.